Welcome to my channel. I'm Elizabeth Liz Muschett, and today it's the Astrology Star Sisters talking about astrology and tarot for the Virgo season. And I want to welcome my friends and colleagues and fellow astrologers, Joy Vernon and Madam Simon. Welcome, both of you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we're going to go to the next slide. So Joy Vernon is an astrologer, tarot reader, and Reiki master, and her website is joyvernon.com. Madam Simon is an archetypal astrologer, tarot reader, visionary artist, and her website is iconalchemy.com. I'm an astrologer, author, intuitive, and tarot reader, and a graduate of the Dwarf Planet University and certified relationship astrologer. And my website is alightpath.com. And we always enjoy hearing from you. And we're in Virgo season. And here's some California poppies. And I'm not sure the other flower there because I'd gotten some wildflowers earlier this year and just kind of threw them in. And so it was a surprise of what came out.
They're gorgeous, really pretty.
And you can see the daisy kind of behind it on the sidewalk there.
Photobombing Daisy.
Yes, it is.
So Virgo is a mutable modality. It completes and ties up loose ends. It's evolving, mediating, adapting, distributing, and accommodating. The ruling planet is Mercury. And Joy, can you lead us through a couple more?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's the earth element, which makes it committed, stable, secure, dependable, practical, physical, disciplined, structured, safe, and slow. Its mantra is I serve or I analyze. And do you want to?
Simon can do the keywords for us if you don't mind.
Okay. So Virgo can be logical, practical, analytical, mediator, focused, organized, detail-oriented, problem solvers, natural healers, curious, precise, service-oriented, and seeking perfection. And so the caution then would be the tendency to be perfectionist, critical, picky, anxious, and a worrier. And I just have to add here, it says here natural healers. I would also say natural gardeners.
Very nice, very nice. Good.
Anything else you'd like to add, Joy?
No, I think we put a whole bunch in. We packed it full.
And the sun ingress into Virgo occurs on August 22nd at 6:30 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time in Seattle, Washington. And we have some major configurations are a yod or finger of God, a minor grand trine, and sun square Uranus. So do you want to start talking about that here, Joy, or should we go to the next slide? I wasn't sure.
Oh, let's go ahead and yeah, that's a good question. I don't know, Liz. I didn't include that minor trine, so you guys might want to take a look at that one before we move forward. I guess that's what I'm thinking.
Well, I think it is marked on the yod one, but just not as bright or thick. So.
Oh, okay.
So we'll go ahead and talk about the tarot cards about the sun ingress into Virgo. The sun is in the first decan of Virgo, so that's the Eight of Pentacles, and the sun is in its own decan. And the major arcana card associated with Virgo is the Hermit. So Joy, I'll let you talk about the Rider-Waite-Smith deck first.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, Virgo with all of its attention to detail and its it's associated with routines, right? With what do you do on a daily basis? What do you do regularly? And so a lot of times there's a very, there's just a very practical kind of, I'm like, all of these are keywords that we've already talked about, but trying to put it in the context, it feels a little mundane a lot of the time. I had a client this week that had a new moon in Virgo that they were born on, and they had a Scorpio midheaven, and they were trying to find their career direction, which was totally mysterious to them because Virgo was so comfortable for them. And we can see some of that comfort here in that Eight of Pentacles in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. And that guy's just hammering away on his chiseling out that pentacle disc that he's making. And you can see that he's been practicing and practicing. He's got a whole bunch that he's done. He's not trying to take any risks. He's not trying to do anything too creative. He's just getting the basics down. And that is a very Virgoan energy. But at the same time, we get the Hermit to represent as the major arcana representation of Virgo. And the Hermit still has some of that step-by-step approach to his spirituality. He is following this lonely path through the mountains to arrive at some kind of spiritual knowledge or inner insight. And he is taking it slow and one step at a time, but it brings out a lot more of that deep depth that we can find in Virgo, and that spiritual connection that results from the everyday work that we put into whatever it is we want, which can be mundane or it can be totally spiritual.
And then Simon, will you talk about the Crowley-Harris Thoth deck, please?
Yes. So I tend to think of Virgo as applied knowledge, since it is ruled by Mercury, and Mercury also rules Gemini. And in Gemini, Mercury gathers the information, but in Virgo, Mercury makes practical use of the information. Okay. This sign very much is, as Joy was indicating, this can be about honing one's craft. Okay. One takes the long, slow approach over time, cultivating habits. Okay. And again, those habits can be mundane. I wouldn't even say or spiritual. I would say this is actually the spiritual within the mundane. Okay. And so we see here with the Eight of Pentacles in the Thoth deck, the sun in Virgo is represented by this tree with these beautiful blossoms. The key word is prudence. Okay. And, that tree, the flowers are being shielded by the leaves because the flowers are not yet ready to bear fruit, right? And so they are still a little delicate, a little vulnerable. And so this is a nice, slow, steady process of growth, not rushing anything. There is a story that I associate with this, which is that a farmer planted seeds in the field, and then as the little shoots started to come up, he went out into the field and he starts tugging on the leaves, trying to get them to grow faster. And of course, that's not going to work. You're going to either bruise the leaves or uproot the plant entirely. And so I use this card to show people you can't rush your process. Don't come down on yourself for being slow and steady and patient about your process, because that is how you're actually going to get the best fruit. Okay. And then the Hermit card itself, we see the Hermit, he carries his own light. He is not relying on the light of others. Okay. So there is this self-sufficiency that we see with the Hermit. Okay. He is turned away from the rest of the world to examine the mysteries of the universe. You see the cosmic egg there with the serpent of wisdom and regeneration wrapped around it. Okay. Down in the corner there, we see the three-headed dog Kerberos, the guardian of the underworld, who is then watching, keeping guard while the hermit's doing his thing, right? And so that again suggests this, delving into the deeper mysteries, but doing so in this very practical way. We also see the poppy little pod there to indicate Virgo's association with medicine. And so we can keep in mind there is, both the Virgoan tendency towards things like herbal studies, okay, but also toward, more modern medicine in the sense of being going through a long process to become a healer, applying scientific information and process. And then here's the interesting thing about that. The hermit may certainly spend a long time alone, but eventually, since the hermit is Virgo is concerned with service. And so that suggests the need to come back after one has spent all one's time examining the secrets of the universe and submit them for peer review.
Well, thank you. That was great. Okay. So here we have the yod or finger of God with the Sun, quincunx, Saturn, and Neptune, and Pluto. And then there's a sextile between Pluto and Saturn and Neptune. So Joy, do you want to start?
Yeah. So so here we've got the energy of the yod or finger of God is that the two sextile planets are working together through the planet at the point, and they're kind of funneling this energy towards that, which puts a huge amount of pressure on that planet. And so here what we get is Pluto at the beginning of Aquarius there, as well as our Saturn and Neptune conjunction at the beginning of Aries, and that those fairly intense planets right there are working together and in support of each other to put all of their energy down there on poor little Sun in Virgo, just like 0 degrees of Virgo going, hi everybody. and there's a lot, I think there is a lot of pressure here. Pluto certainly has his intensity and his kind of control and power that he wields, as well as that transformation. And in Aquarius, he is applying that that transformation and that power to big ideas and theories. And Virgo now has to, Virgo's like the secretary that has to take all of those big ideas and sort them out and set up all the meetings and make sure that there's a timeline to get all of this taken care of, in a timely manner. And likewise, we've got that Saturn Neptune at the very beginning of Aries, not quite in the 0 point, but I guess Saturn is at 0 there, and Neptune's at 1, but that still is that birth point of the chart. So we've got like Pluto's like massive vision of what he's going to accomplish, and then we've got that birth point of the chart working together to bring this about. And so it's a lot of pressure on the Sun there in Virgo, but that's what we need to get things done. Is we need that Virgo energy. We need the assistance and the organized thinkers that can break it down into the steps to get it all done.
Simon, would you like to add something to that?
Yeah, so a couple things. First of all, that sun is in a state of mutual reception with Mercury. Okay. The sun rules Leo, where Mercury is, and Mercury rules Virgo. Now, it's not a true mutual reception in the sense that they don't have a degree aspect together, but they are in each other's home signs. They are still offering each other some measure of support. And that's especially important because they are the final dispositors for the entire chart. Okay. So every other planet, even those big, transcendental, transpersonal planets whose action can be really intense for the sun in modest Virgo, nonetheless, on some level, they are still answering to that sun. Which then suggests that, well, yes, we can feel like, oh my goodness, there's all this big stuff going on, and it's a little intense for little old me, okay? Nonetheless, little old me is asking for it. Okay, that sun is in fact the one who all these others are operating on behalf of. And I actually think of it a bit like, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Labyrinth from the 80s. But David Bowie's character says, I'm positively exhausted from trying to live up to your expectations. Okay. All those big planets are actually trying to live up to some very perfect expectations, perfectionist expectations on the part of the sun. So they're bringing it. And now the sun is like, okay, I guess I gotta deal with this.
I like that. It's like this, the outer planets are bringing, and Saturn are bringing the big ideas, but at the same time, they do have to live up to the sun's expectations. So that's a really nice, interesting kind of integration of those elements and sharing of, they both set expectations for the other in a way that's really interesting.
And of course, as we were mentioning earlier, we've got that minor grand trine that the yod's base is a part of. And that minor grand trine is this ongoing configuration. It's been going since around this time last year, actually, and is going to be continuing to go on into the beginning of next year. And that's all three of the outer planets plus Saturn in cahoots, operating together for a purpose that shifts the whole world, that shifts all of this generation. Okay. The outer planets being generational planets, slow moving planets, their action has an impact on everyone. The sun, the moon, and our inner planets are very personal. So this is like a really interesting then meeting of the transpersonal and the personal. The big forces of life funnel down into the sun in Virgo, chunking it down, and making big concepts manageable.
Absolutely.
I love it.
The Pluto and the Saturn and the Neptune are all retrograde. So working through that might take a little bit of time. I don't think it's going to be instantaneous. It's going to be a process that people need to think about.
Yeah, internal.
Yeah.
And appropriate to the hermit.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I was at this tarot conference and tarot retreat in Minneapolis that I mentioned before we started, it was on the hermit, and there were a number of variety of exercises that we did. One of them was a meditation on the hermit card. I was using the Wee Moon tarot, and the amazing illustration that I was working with, and the insight that I got from that image is that the hermit is holding his lamp up to see within the darkness cast by his own shadow.
Oh, I love it.
And it's just like, talk about internal work and the shadow work with Pluto bearing down on the sun. It's like there can be some very deep, intense work going on, and self-rebirth with that 0 Aries point.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing that. And then we have the cards here that Joy put on here for us, of the cards that are involved in the yod. So, Joy, I'll let you talk about the Rider-Waite-Smith ones first.
Well, and as I just started thinking, I'm like, it's not fair for me to always go first, so maybe we should alternate, and I'll let Simon go first this time.
No worries.
Yeah. So we have, and this brings out just, it's still all that same energy that we talked about, but it brings it out pictorially, and we can see the deep descent with the Hanged Man. We can see the called forth into resurrection in the Judgment card, which is Pluto. We can see the birth that with Saturn at the 0 point, right? For this ingress chart, in that 0 degrees of Aries, in the world, stepping through that wreath and being reborn. And then all of these kind of in service in some ways to that central point of that funnel, the sun, which is the birth of the divine child. And so this adds, to me, this adds a very kind of alchemical interpretation, I think, to what we're seeing. There is, we can see it. I was thinking of it on a pretty mundane level when I was looking at the astrology chart. I was like, seeing the secretary, seeing the assistant, seeing that person that has to do the work in Virgo. And so here our sun would be in the sign of the hermit, but we can see it on a much more again, spiritual, but self-work and self-development type of approach. And how that's part of alchemy, is the destruction of self in order to be reborn, in order to release the problems, any detritus or anything that is keeping us from our best, releasing that and purifying it and spiritualizing it until we get a perfected outcome. And so we can really see that process very strongly, I think, in these cards.
I think that alchemical principle of solvate coagula, of breaking things down and then reforming them, is really apt here, in particular, because since Virgo is so concerned with detail, then taking things apart and getting them into their constituents, their components, and then seeing how do we make them work better together. Is there anything that needs to be cleaned away? Is there anything that needs to be released? Okay. That is very applicable to the Virgoan process. I like to think of Virgo as the apprentice on the road to mastery. Okay. And so, we may feel like, okay, we don't have all the big fancy wisdom and knowledge that we need, but that is gained slowly over time. That is not something that we just, that somebody waves a magic wand and poof, we now have all the wisdom of the universe. It is a process and a journey. Okay. And so, with the cards that we've got here, the universe we can see as, coming to the end of one cycle for the purpose of beginning another. But in this moment where we're at the end of one cycle and we're starting this new journey, this new process, we can feel maybe a little bit paralyzed. Analysis paralysis is something that Virgo can be prone to. Okay. We can have that sense of the hanged man where it's like we have to, go down into the depths and experience this sense of, I don't know. I have no idea what to do. And then, but I can start with what's the first bit of information that I can work with. And, the universe card, of course, being ruled by Saturn, there is that Saturnian part of slow process that works well with the Virgo energy. We see also the sun here. I very much like to think of this card as it's that rebirth kind of thing, but it's also take the time to celebrate how far you have come, to acknowledge the potency, the mystery, the sacredness of your mundane process. Okay. And then the Aeon card, where we see that godchild who, has been born within the sun. That godchild now is pondering, what are the patterns of my life? What are the seasons and cycles and processes? Where is the ancestral lineage? What has come before, so that now I can decide, what do I keep? What do I let go of? What do I refine over time? What do I apply this Virgoan methodology to?
Anything else you want to add, Joy?
No, I'm thinking, what am I going to apply it to?
Well, both of you got great things to say about that. I appreciate that. And I'm sure our audience did too. So we have Sun square Uranus. The Sun is in Virgo and Uranus is in Gemini. And Uranus is part of an ongoing outer planet bisextile minor grand trine. So, Simon, do you want to start on this one?
Well, so Sun square Uranus. Uranus is, of course, the great change maker. Can be the great liberator, the great rebel. Okay. It tends to like to shake things up for the heck of it. And that can be a little unsettling to the Sun in Virgo. At the same time, though, note that they are both in Mercury-ruled signs. Okay. And Uranus in Gemini, Gemini gathers lots of information. Okay. And it doesn't tend to go too deeply into the information because it has a lot to process, right? So it's just engaged in sorting behavior. Yes, no, on, off, black, white, day, night. Okay. Any of the various polarities. Okay. Uranus in Gemini, however, can give us these sudden flashes of insight with regard to that information. Now, speaking as somebody who I have Uranus at my ascendant, I can be very Uranian. Okay. And I know that when we have Uranian insight, it can sometimes come so fast, it's very difficult to process. And I think that is the nature of this square, that we may get information going so fast and so furious that it is very difficult for the Sun in Virgo to, apply it, to compartmentalize it, to figure out, okay, what am I going to do with all of this? My personal coping mechanism for when I get those kinds of downloads is to quickly write or verbally record, if you need to, everything that you're getting, and don't try to do anything with it in the moment. Okay. But since these are both ruled by Mercury, they are, in my opinion, kind of helping us to level up our data processing power, and our ability to make practical use of those sudden flashes out of the blue. Okay. Gemini is very inventive energy. Virgo then is going to be like, okay, that's a great invention idea. How do I make it actually work? Okay. And again, Uranus is part of that minor grand trine. So all of the outer planets on some level are contributing to this energy. But it's challenging. The thing is, I'm a gamer. Okay. And Mercury rules gaming. And so Mercury signs can very much pertain to gaming. And so to me, I'm like, okay, this is the process of leveling up. This is, engaging in some extra tough battles. But they're largely mental battles about how do we deal with the massive influx of information and the changes that are being instigated as a result of that information.
Would you like to add something, Joy?
Well, yeah, I don't know that it's very well thought out, but it feels kind of simplistic. So I don't know that it adds much, but yes. I think the main thing that it really is sparking me with this particular square is that the very organized, structured, like when you get the any kind of like Virgo midheaven, your mind goes immediately to accountants, right? It's just like we just take care of all the little details. It always feels kind of precise and focused. I think of when my sister, when I was like, she was still in college. I was, in my 20s, my early, probably mid 20s, I guess. My sister did a animal card reading for me, and one of my cards was the mouse. It's like nobody wants a mouse as a totem animal. I was just like, animal cards are stupid. And so she's like telling me about the mouse, and the mouse is like very focused on all the little details, and he can sort all the grain out, and he can, do all of this, very tight, close, focused stuff. And it took me like 20 or 30 years to be like, oh, that's actually pretty cool. I could use some of that energy. That's awesome. But I think one of the things with that it, for me, it felt so constrained. And I feel like the Uranus energy is helping to open up some of the potential and challenge that sun. I mean, the square to me is kind of a challenge or a headbutting, like type of. There's somebody told me my interpretations are very visceral. Type of interaction. And so I feel like Uranus is really challenging the sun to open up, to rebel, to like our standard Uranus keywords, to revolutionize its process, to bring out its eccentricities, to invent, and it wants to it wants to lift that sun up to the height of the sky, where the little mouse is like, if he's looking at the world from that viewpoint, he's probably in a hawk's talons, and it's probably not a good thing for him. And so the sun is like, no. But I feel like Uranus is, and then maybe, you know, somehow he escapes, somehow he gets back down to the ground safe and sound, but he has like some kind of crazy like vision that's no other mouse has ever had before. And I feel like that's I feel like that's something that's going on here that just feels very important to me.
I think you're actually very much on to something there. You know, being the accountant isn't a glamorous thing, but it is often the thing that keeps everything else running. And when we are looking at massive systemic change, at worldwide, you know, generational change, as is being intimated by that minor grand trine, the people who you're going to have to get on board are, in fact, the folks who keep everything running, whether it's your accountants or your janitors or, you know, the people who make things tidy and livable and comprehensible. The people who attend to all of the details that that the big ideas people tend to overlook. And so, yes, this might be kind of extreme for that mouse or that accountant or that barista. Okay. They might be pretty extreme, but at the same time, if you can energize those people who keep the world running, that is truly revolutionary.
Wow. Wow.
And with all the changes that are going on, it's like the ideas are coming quickly, and you know that Virgo energy will help to integrate them and work towards them.
Make
Anything
them manageable.
Yeah. A big doorway opening, it sounds like.
I love it.
Okay, and then we have the cards for the Sun square Uranus, and go ahead and start, Joy.
Okay, so yeah, so here we have the Sun card as the Sun, and the Fool is our card for Uranus. The square aspect is governed by the planet Mars, so we get Mars's card, the Tower, in there as to represent the actual interaction between the two. And so again, we've got that Sun, that child, the light, and the success, and individuality, expression, creativity that we get with that Sun card. But at the same time, and I think this might be a little bit of what I might be seeing here in these cards. The Sun, you already have achieved something with the Sun. The Sun is like, yay, you know, we got the Sun card. Everything is good. There is success. You are expressing yourself. But it's trying to integrate with the Fool, which is kind of, and how is this a fresh start? It's like, what's next? And it's kind of like, I just achieved something. Give me a second to bask. And it's like, no, next. And I think that that's a little bit of this energy. And the Tower is, you know, this constant collapse of, I mean, the Tower represents the collapse of the ego, constant collapse of the ego in order to take the next step and go to the next level and leap into the next opportunity. So there's quite a quite a bit going on here in these cards. Now I have to stop and think about it for a minute. So I'll hand it off to you, Simon.
So, the sun, first of all, the sun rules Leo, which comes before Virgo, right? And I very much think of the sun's mission and Leo's mission as being about showing up. Okay. Now, for Leo, that showing up may be like, this big push into the limelight, okay? Stepping into a leadership position, being seen and being acknowledged. But then when we move into Virgo, now the sun gets humbled a bit, okay? Gets pulled down into, okay, it was great to be on stage for a while, but now I got to deal with like the mundane little bits, okay? And speaking as a former performer, yes, there's actually a lot of those little mundane bits after you've enjoyed the limelight for a little bit. Okay. And so there is this matter of how do we show up each day? It's not enough to have shown up on the big stage. Now we have to show up each day, which is the habits that we cultivate in Virgo. Okay. Applying ourselves step by step on that path to mastery. Okay. It's great to have raw talent. Now, if you want that talent to last, if you want to keep getting up on the stage, or if you want to be the true leader, you're going to have to perfect that talent. You're going to have to hone it over time. You're going to have to do your 10,000 variations of the thing that you're doing. Your 10,000 practice sessions when you're dancing, your 10,000 performances, your 10,000 tarot readings. Okay. With the tower, one of the things about the tower is that often it can represent an institution coming to an end, something that we thought would always be there. That's why we can sometimes associate it with, job loss or loss of a home, moving, okay, or a divorce, okay. But at the same time, often, even though there's certainly external triggers for, that kind of massive shakeup to our consciousness, a lot of the tower's work is actually within, as we adjust our perspective, as we suddenly see the world in a whole different light because something has shifted so radically. As I like to tell clients, the great thing about the tower is once you sweep away the rubble, you got a new place to build, right? Which goes very well with that Fool card. The Fool card is the zero card, the place where all possibilities are. Okay. And with the sun at 0 degrees of Virgo, and that yod that we were looking at, having Saturn at 0 degrees of Aries, and next year, of course, we get that big conjunction with Saturn and Neptune at 0 degrees of Aries. Within that open space, all things are possible because we haven't made a decision yet. We haven't yet put a form to anything. Okay. And so, this is the eternal dance of yin and yang. Okay. Of that receptive open space waiting for the first action to come. And at the end of our many actions, going back into the empty space in order to start the next cycle. So, yes, This is challenging, but it is also liberating, literally, because that's what Uranus does. Okay. So I strongly recommend free up some space, free up some time, give yourself lots of time to do one little thing. Okay. Breathe around this stuff. Slow the pace. Recognize you're on that fool's journey. And it's okay not to know. I strongly encourage us all to cultivate the Buddhist principle of beginner's mind here. To set aside what we think we know about things so that we may better learn about those things. Because if we're, in this kind of notion of I'm an expert, I know this stuff, okay, well, then we will miss things that we could learn that would actually hone our knowledge. Whereas if we start from that beginner's mind standpoint, for each and everything that we are dealing with, embrace that newness, that sense of childlike wonder that we see with the Fool. Okay, now, maybe, yeah, the tower came down and there's some rubble to sweep away and all of that. But, oh, look, I got this space. Imagine what we can do with it.
Great advice. Thank you. And then the planets in the decans. The sun is in the first decan of Virgo, 8 of Pentacles, from August 22nd to September 1st. Mercury's in the third decan of Virgo, the 10 of Pentacles, from September 12th through the 18th. And Mars is in the first decan of Scorpio, the 5 of Cups, from September 22nd through October 6th. And I'll let Joy start with the Rider-Waite-Smith cards.
Yeah, and so, and I thought one of the things we might be able to talk about with this is a little bit of how to use that decanic energy. The faces, the dignity by face or dignity by decan, is an odd little dignity that Ptolemy and his tables basically is like not very important. That's the lowest one. Don't worry about it. But there's other authors that say dignity by face is equal to dignity by the actual domicile of the planet. And the one that I find the most interesting is that what Bonatti says, which is the dignity by face is like a person in a foreign country with nothing but their own wits and skill. And I really find that to be very expressive for the minor arcana tarot cards, because the major arcana are kind of these big, external forces and the major archetypes, and they are these kind of chapter endings and all of this kind of stuff. And then you get minor arcana cards and they're very Virgoan. These are your steps to achieve your goal. This is what you can do to reach that big major arcana vision that you have. And so the minor arcana are us without any help, without any support, just figuring it out on our own. And so this is, so that I think is a wonderful way of looking at the minors. But there are also ways of working with these decans. I'm sure that Simon will be light up on this in terms of magical work and working with that energy of that planet when it's focused in that part of the zodiac where it does have to, according to Bonatti's aphorism, where it does have to handle the situation through its own virtue and skill. And so, and of course, we've already talked about the 8 of Pentacles there. Mercury is the one that rules the 10 of Pentacles. And one of the things that I've written a lot of blog posts on many, not all, but many of the decanic cards. And when I was writing about Mercury in Virgo here for the 10 of Pentacles, I realized that there was a strategy to it. This is Mercury at his most analytical, and he is thinking 10 moves ahead. And that is that old man that was like, I'm just not trying to get done today what I need to do today. I am also making sure that what I create is going to last for generations, which is the couple and the child, showing how this accumulation of wealth, of a home, of a place to live, of all of that is something that's getting passed down and is going to last. And so the strategizing that we can get from Mercury in his own decan there in Virgo. And then we get that, and Mars just barely steps foot, dips his toe into Scorpio before the sun moves forward into Libra. And so, but it does dip its toe. So I went ahead and included it, and that's a 5 of Cups. And the and Mars here in Scorpio, you know, Mars, the scorpionic energy is very much a deep energy. Like Virgo, it is an internal energy. Virgo is the digestion and Scorpio is the elimination. And so both of these energies are very, very much internally processing, both physically in terms of the actual, you know, biology of the body, but also on a more of insightful inner just inner looking approach. And so Mars here in Scorpio is wanting to take a look at, what did I do wrong? You know, what did I mess up? How can I learn from that? And really wanting to claim and own the mistakes, the disappointments, and kind of honor that and utilize whatever he can use, maybe reclaim anything that's still usable, but at least learn the lesson.
So, kind of bouncing off of, you've got multiple things there to bounce off of course, but with the, first of all, when we have dignity by face, by the decans, but also dignity by term, okay? Either of those forms of dignity. One of the things that is important to remember about them is that they can actually be kind of protective, okay? So yes, like you said, you know, being in a foreign land with nothing but your wits and your skills to be able to handle things, and yet your wits and your skills have been developed if you are in your own decan, or in your own face and or terms, okay? And so this can actually have a protective quality, even if you are in, say, the sign of, you know, the overall sign is like the sign of your detriment, but you're in your own face, you can actually have some measure of protection there. Or if, let's say you're a combust planet, okay? A combust planet will actually get some measure of protection by being in their own face or terms. So I don't think that we should discount the capabilities, our own capabilities here. Okay, planets in their own seconds have some faith in their own abilities, right? And so, that's where we're starting from here then with these cards. Each of them is a planet with faith in their own abilities. Okay. And then what are they going to do with that? Well, we've got that Eight of Pentacles, and I've talked a fair amount about it. The one thing I do want to add to what I've said before is that, so I watch a lot of C dramas and K dramas and wuxia cinema and all of that kind of stuff. And typically, the practice of magic gets translated as cultivation. And so, with this first decan of Virgo, I would encourage us to figure out, what are we cultivating, both in the external world and the internal world, with, again, that emphasis on the mundane as spiritual practice. Okay. Virgo in the Northern Hemisphere is a harvesting time. Okay. So it's very agriculturally oriented. And so the processes of cultivation, paying attention to how the natural world does things, can in turn give us insight into our own processes and our own path of apprenticeship moving toward mastery, or honing of our craft. Okay. The 10 of Pentacles, Mercury in Virgo, in his home sign, we see actually within this version of the card, those coins are arranged in the form of the Kabbalistic tree of life. There is this indication as a result that Mercury is aware of all of the processes that each of those coins is representing between the unknown and right before something's about to get manifested in the material world. Okay. That how do we actually bring things from high concept down into reality? And yes, as Joy was saying, there is that, kind of making moves now that are going to pay off in the future, strictly from both a very practical and magical standpoint. Then we can look at this as, what are you doing now that your future self will thank you for? Okay. And it is never too late to start the processes that your future self will thank you for. Okay. Wealth in this context is not simply monetary wealth. Oh, it can be. But it is all of the things that contribute to having a life that you will thank your past self for. Okay. So, finally, Mars in the first decan of Scorpio, 5 of Cups. Here we have the keyword of disappointment. So, Scorpio is Mars's nighttime home. It's Aries is his daytime home, right? And in Aries, his energy is, very impulsive, and it's bold, it's in your face, but it's fairly innocent, actually. Okay, because it's youngest sign. Okay, so it has some big childlike energy. Wants to be the big damn hero, is unafraid to, rush into the burning building and save the babies and all that good stuff. Okay. But in Scorpio, Mars's energy is older, more patient, more directed, more ruthless. Okay. It is intense and focused. And when we put our willpower, our energy into something in a very intense and focused way, and it doesn't work out, oh, it's not the same as like, you know, if it's Mars in Aries and something doesn't work out, it's like, okay, okay, I may be disappointed, but I immediately go on to the next thing. Okay. But for Mars in Scorpio, oh, there can be this kind of seething that goes on. Okay. And so when I see this card come up, I always ask my clients, who do you become when you don't get what you want? This card is about grappling with those feelings so that you can learn from the situation, so that you can potentially find other ways to get what you want. But it also asks that you recognize the part of yourself that may be ruthless, the part of yourself that, might be so focused on what you want that you do something that is actually outside of your normal moral box. Okay. Because when we confront those parts of ourselves, when we ask ourselves, how far am I actually willing to go to get what I want? Okay. Is this something that I have so much emotion around that it is clouding my judgment? Or that it is, causing me to question my own ethics? That's how we become far more self-aware and far more capable in our skills, and at the same time also less likely to do shitty things in response to being disappointed, because we actually see the possibilities, good, bad, and ugly. One of the most dangerous things, I think, is people who think, oh, I'm a good person, I would never do X, Y, and Z. And yet we don't actually confront where we might do X, Y, and Z. Okay. Knowing those things about ourselves does not mean we're going to descend into the awfulness and like become whatever it is we fear most. Instead, it actually gives us the tools to use our will in ways that don't become reactive, amoral, etc. This is actually a huge part of the perfecting process of Virgo. To be able to actually look at those finer details, including the details we don't like. So I think this is a great card for us to end Virgo season on.
Anything else you'd like to add, Joy?
No, I think that's good. We covered a lot of territory there.
Oh, yeah.
You guys have your cards handy to pick a card to end with?
Why, yes.
Well, I have many cards handy. I'll use this one. And I forget, do we have a question that we're asking, or is it just draw a card for Virgo? We've done in the past?
I think when we've done this before, we've asked, how can we use this? How can we use this moment of time?
That's perfect. Perfect.
Yeah.
And I want to thank you both for sharing so much wonderful information with myself and the audience today. It's been fantastic.
Well, I love doing this, and I think there's something about Simon and me that just really, we play off each other in a really nice way. I love it.
Yeah, I think we have great synastry.
Yeah. It's awesome. Okay. How can we use this energy?
Do you have your card, Simon?
I do. And I'm laughing because it works very well with what Joy was talking about, I think, just prior to us doing all of this. It is Venus in Virgo. We didn't have
the one we missed, that she doesn't quite move into Virgo during this month or into the second decan. Okay, nice.
with the keyword of gain. And so, Venus in Virgo is considered to be in fall. This is not a place where she has her usual resources. Venus likes to, she doesn't want to have to work too hard at things. She wants to waft out the pheromones and draw the good stuff to her. Okay. But in Virgo, here she is every day having to work at it, having to work at connections, at doing things like making things beautiful or building wealth or any of those kinds of things. Okay. She has to cultivate habits. Okay. And Virgo, one of the key things about Virgo is the desire to be in service. Okay. And so one of the best ways that that Venus can cultivate enjoyable relationships and convivial times, maybe with a little vino, is through acting in service. So, what is your favorite vino? Or what is your favorite cup of tea? Is very much what I think Venus in Virgo can. That's a picture right there. Somebody knows you well enough, or is willing to learn enough about you to bring you your favorite cup of tea when you need it most. Okay. Those little ways, again, like what I said about accountants or baristas or janitors or any of the other people who keep civilization going. Okay. And often do not get enough thanks for it. Is that they are tending to little details that might otherwise slip our minds. And yet in that moment, when they provide that service, that is the most important thing there is. Okay. If you're sitting in your house and the garbage is piling up and it smells bad, you are going to be so freaking grateful when it is gone, when somebody has come to haul it away. Okay. If you're a little kid and you fell down and you got a boo-boo on your knee, mama coming with a bandage and soothing is going to be the most important thing in the world. And it's a little tiny detail in the grand scheme of things. But it is absolutely the thing that truly cultivates and reinforces love.
I love that. I love that. So I pulled, very interestingly, the Ace of Pentacles, which first of all was interesting because the 5 of Cups has the inverted pentagram on it, and this has an upright pentagram in that sunflower there. And the ace is the beginning. It's the start. And Pentacles, of course, is Earth. So this is the beginning of Earth, which is literally our ingress chart we were looking at, 0 degrees of Virgo, the beginning of this Earth sign. But I also think it pulls in a little bit with our 10 of Pentacles, which was our Mercury in Virgo strategizing. And Simon was really great in reminding us what is the one thing that you can do, that you can start, the detail you can take care of that will move you forward, which is just such good advice and something that I want to do every single day, and really have to be conscious of it, like weirdly conscious of, like, what is the one thing I need to do today? And I really do think that that is what our Ace of Pentacles is saying. It's like, it seems like it's just one step, but that's what Virgo is all about. And there is a 10 of Pentacles at the end of this. There is an accomplishment and a seeing far into the future, and seeing far into the perpetual growth that comes out of our annual plans, the ones that always come back. We have to put a lot of effort into getting them started, but then they come back every time. And I think that this tiny little Ace of Pentacles is talking about, it's a sunflower. It's got, I don't know, dozens, hundreds of seeds in it. Mm-hmm. You know, there's so much potential in our tiny little Virgo steps. So I love it.
Can you tell us what deck that is? Because some of the audience might want to know.
Yeah, this is the Tarot de Saint Croix by Lisa de Saint Croix, and this is the edition, the borderless edition, which I was excited to get at a different tarot conference, one down in the Portland area, from Lisa herself. She was vending at that conference.
Nice. Oh, I think that kind of rounds it up with those two cards at the end. I really liked all that. So I want to thank you for both for being here with me today, and our audience for joining us. And Joy, I'll let you talk about your Substack.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I've been blogging since 2009, and you can definitely just go to my website, joyvernon.com, and click on my blog there to see many blog posts. But if you like Substack, and if that's a good place for you to get your information, you can definitely follow me there. And this last month, I had my Alchemical Tower tableau coming up as a live class. Now that has been completed. It's totally processed and video edited and handouts added. And that QR code there will take you to the recorded class that you can now get at any time and learn this really exciting approach to alchemy and tarot based on the planets and signs. And it really is a great way to learn how to go through that alchemical transformation yourself.
That looks very, very interesting. I'll have to look into that. Simon?
So I can be found on Patreon, where I write about the ongoing astrological transits, and I create custom astrological art for my patrons, most notably in the form of solar return cards, though I also sometimes do ACEOs, which are little art cards specific to placements within somebody's natal chart. I am a consulting astrologer. Like Liz, like Joy, we are consulting people, like to work with folks one-on-one. And so in order to schedule a consultation, you can reach me at my website, iconalchemy.com. And if you are in the Pacific Northwest area and you are interested in seeing me in person, I do regularly read tarot and astrology at live events. And so I have a listing of events on my website that you can catch me at.
And like Simon said, I do consultations and I have a newsletter, and you're watching my YouTube channel. So I appreciate you subscribing and liking. I offer a variety of other shows with Astrology Star Sisters. So there's lots that's already on the channel to go back and watch. And there's a lot of other upcoming shows. And so lots to choose from. Check it out. And I will be on Talk Cosmos on September 14th, talking about the second Virgo new moon at 29 degrees, and that is a solar eclipse. And I want to thank our sponsor, Astro Peregrine Software. It's astrology software for Mac and Windows. And you can find more information at astroperegrine.com. And again, I want to thank Simon and Joy for joining me today. It was a pleasure having you both on, and I look forward to having you on again in the near future.
Thank you, Liz.
Yeah, thank you, Liz.
And we're going to say goodbye for now. We'll see you next time.